Hello, this is Anton with another episode of Out Now, where we encourage young athletes to achieve their very best outside of the game. And like every show, we're blessed to have another awesome guest. And y'all know how I do. I'm gonna go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Vitória Alves. I am a track and field athlete, and I'm pro athlete, so I run for my country, that is Brazil. Now,
I appreciate you being with us, Victoria. You ready to get into the questions?
yes, yes.
All right, so you said who you run from, but we'll start from the beginning. Where you originally from, born and raised?
I am from São Paulo, Brazil, so it's like the big city in Brazil, one of the biggest states as well. So yeah, that's where I'm from.
Okay, and so name some other. I've never had the honor of going to Brazil. What are some of the other big cities that people in the state typically know?
So the most like beautiful city in Brazil is Rio de Janeiro, that it has like the Redeemed Christ and all the stuff, like all of the beauties and the beaches, all of those are there. Here is like I would call New York, the United States, New York, São Paulo is like the city that has a lot of business, building, all those stuff.
Oh, okay. So your city, is it known for having a lot of tourists come through also?
Yes, not as much as Rio de Janeiro. Because when you call Brazil, you see as a tropical country, and when the tourism see it and they search it, they all always go there to the Rio de Janeiro. Here, like they come to see the metropole, as I would say.
Okay. All right. So when did you get started in sports?
So when I was really young, my mom is it was just my mom, me, and my sister, my big sister. So we were just spending a lot of time. We would go to school, and the other half of the time. So here is just school, like elementary school or middle school. It's just a half of a day. So we would go to school either from 7 to noon or 1 to 5. So the other time we would not have nothing to do. So she would search some kind of activities for us to do. So it was always related to sports. So I went through gymnastics. I did ballet, um, basketball, track and field, and I did some like other recreation, but nothing more bigger than that.
Wow, wow. So how did you throughout your youth, was track and field instantly your favorite sport, or did you have a love for some of the other sports just as much? Oh,
So I had a love for basketball for a little bit. I was in the basketball area, I would say, for 3 years before going to track and field. I was very young. I was 11 when I got on a good team here in Brazil, in São Paulo, for basketball, and I was there. I stayed there until I was 14. After I was 14, I translated to track and field.
okay. All right. So what was
Transition.
some of
I say I translated, but I transitioned it to track and field. I'm sorry.
all right, all right. So what was some of the events that you did early on in track and field?
But when I was 14, I started on triple jump, and then with that I did long jump. So for like 2 years or 3 years, I did just triple jump and long jump. And then my coach introduced me hurdles. So then I was really good at it at the time. So um I started doing long jump and hurdles. But
Okay.
now I'm better at hurdles, so I'm a hurdler, I'll say.
All right, all right. Was that the I know you say you're better at hurdles, but did you like the jumping more than doing the hurdles?
If you ask me what my favorite event is, I would always say long jump. But I created a love for hurdles.
Hurdles.
I'd say long jump is my first love. Hurdles is like I don't know how to say it, but it just came after that. You know what I say? I mean,
Got you. Got you. Got you. So again, you talked about the school setup there. And so the time frames that you all went to school, is that from like what the equivalent of what we call, I mean, do you have an equivalent? We have like, we go kindergarten all the way through high school, which is like 12th grade. So how many years do you all go to school? And then throughout your whole school time, is it always short days like that? Do you always go half a day all the way through school?
Uh, only I don't know when we are kindergarten in elementary school. I think we stayed the whole day,
Okay.
but normally it's half a day. But we have schools as well that is the entire day. But normally it's half a day, and we go through all the things. I think middle school to high school, end of high school, on that system. And but here the curiosity is that we have just 3 years of high school, not four. So we end school. I end the school with 17.
Okay.
I think there is normally with 18.
Normally 18, depending on when your birthday was. And I'm gonna tell you now, Victoria, you're about to start some trouble because there's gonna be some young kids in the States that say, if I can go there and go to school half a day, I'm gonna change it up. And so
Yeah.
that's awesome. Just good to hear the difference in the setup in schools and things like that. And so as you're running, I guess during middle school time, like do you have some memories or some highlights of any sport, whether it was track and field or even basketball, some memories of some of your highlights in those sports?
One of like my first memories in doing track and field was that I had the opportunity to fly. So I was my first time on the plane was to compete. So
Okay.
my first travel as well on the plane was to compete outside of the state, was to compete. So that was one of my favorite memories when I was young. I think I was in my end of it was the end of my middle school, I think, and then I got to high school the next year. So that was my favorite memory because I got to the experience to go to. I went to the south
Okay.
and more south with I don't know how to say in English, but we went south and to the south of the country, and I
Okay.
competed. I didn't have a very good experience, but it was my first competing, but it was my first national um doing track and field. So I was how to say overwhelmed with the travel, with amount of children, of amount of kids, teenagers that I saw there competing because I didn't have any idea. And yes, going there and compete, having my first plane ride.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, did you have multiple after that first time? Were there several times that you got to go to other places and travel after that first time?
Yes, so then that was the transition to basketball and track and field. So I was like kind of going back and forth. And then when I went to my first travel and I saw that I could travel more, and I got more interested in track and field, and it became
Wow.
my love. So
Wow.
this is why I do it up to this day.
That's good.
Not because
That's
of
good.
that, not just because of that, but that just was a spark, you know?
Right, right. It definitely will motivate a lot of young people. So I asked you, do you still have a little bit of basketball game in
No, I definitely don't. I would say I was one of the fastest in the team. This is why I can't say that I'm not good at basketball at all
you? Okay.
today. This is why I wasn't there too, because it wasn't I wasn't playing much time, and
Right.
it's like it was one of like we have categories. I think there too, like under 20, under 18, and whatever. So I was like when I got in, I got directly I was a start. So I was like being big, you know. So then when
Right.
I translated no, I transitioned to categories. So I was with the big girls that was like a year older than me. And you know, that age, when you're a year older, you're stronger, you're taller, it's like a big difference.
Okay.
So when I got to like face those girls, I was not prepared. So it was
Right.
like a mind changing. So I was like, oh, track is cooler. I just do it for myself. So why not?
Wow. So as you talked about the experience of being able to travel pretty early, in track and field, most of the times I'm asking guests, hey, at what point in high school did you figure out that you can play or compete on the next level? For you, it seemed like it was pretty early that you had this opportunity to travel. So as you begin to get into your high school years, where you did you already know that you had an opportunity to be a professional track and fielder?
So here is very different than America. I would say we don't have this like this school system, the college system, and then you go pro. Here we go under categories. So for example, when I was my first travel, I was under what the category you would call under 16. Like now, like the adults is called senior. So it goes from there. I don't know how to say the terminology in English. But I was like under 16, then you go under 18, then you go under 20, and then you go under 23. And then after that, you are a senior. You are an
Okay.
adult. So everybody competes with everybody. So we don't
Okay.
have that transition that you're like, oh, I'm going to college. I made to high school. I made to college. I have a like a scholarship, or I had the opportunity to go D1, and then I had opportunity to go to pro, né? To be a
Okay.
pro athlete. We don't have that. Is if you want to compete pro, you can. Like the meets are there for you to compete. So I would say this was a problem as well for my eligibility in the college system, because they would say that I was pro since I was under 23. No, since I was under 18, because
Okay.
the miss here are mixed it. So like I was competing for with the seniors already.
Wow.
It's the same meets. So I was like, one of meets I made some money. You know what I mean? Like one of those I could have some, one of those not, but they consider as a pro athlete.
Okay. All right. So you were able to still go on and compete at a Division 1 school. How did that all come about?
So one of my meets under 20, one of my under 20 meets that I had the opportunity to compete, it was a Pan American Games, no, a Pan American Championship that happened in Peru, I think 2017. There were a lot of scouts there. So I just opened my eyes for that. So I got recruited late, as I would say. So I went to United States when I was 20.
Okay.
So there at that meet there was a lot of scouts, and then I didn't pay much attention. I had the dream in my heart that I would wanted to go to play high school when I was a basketball girl. I would say I wanted to play basketball high school in the United States. But as I was not doing basketball anymore, so that dream just faded. So then when I was at that meet, I saw the opportunities. A lot of my teammates that was in the same team, the Brazilian team, they were getting scouted from college from the United States. So
Okay.
I just opened my eyes for that. And one day, I received a message from a coach. I think it was University of Tennis. No, University of. I think it was Mississippi. I don't remember. I would not call. I think it was Tennessee.
Okay.
It was the Tigers. Memphis.
Mississippi State,
No, Memphis.
Memphis Tigers. Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes. So I think it was their university, and with that, I with the opportunity, I talked to my coach here.
Okay.
He's a really good coach. He's experienced in track and field and all the stuff. He had athletes going to United States as well.
Okay.
And when he looked at the recruitment and what they would give me, whatever, all the stuff, he opened my eyes that I could go to a better school with a better coach, with a
Okay.
more experienced coach as well.
That's-
So that's when I started looking for schools. I sent email for three schools, and Kansas State was the only one that replied,
wow.
interested in me, and interested of in Coach Ravel to reply on. not just the university. Coach Walter replied, and he was interested in me to do long jump and hurdles. They were my main events that in those were what I wanted to do, honestly.
Okay. All right. All right. So what was that transition like? What was the time frame when you came to Kansas State? What year would that have been?
I came to Kansas State. I went to Kansas State 2019, January of 2019.
Okay. All right. What was that translate? Well, I guess I'll ask, had you ever been to the States before coming to Kansas State?
No, no. My visit was online. I had an online visit only, and I just fell in love with the school, and I couldn't say no. I would say
Wow.
I could go and search more of course, but after talking to Coach Revelto, after seeing the school, after seeing the environment, I couldn't say no to
Wow,
go.
wow. So what was that like once you made it here? Like all the different obstacles I'm sure you had to go through with the cultural differences here versus Brazil. What was that initial experience like when you first got to Kansas State?
I remember up to this day that the day that I got in the plane, I landed in Kansas City. So one of the coaches had to pick me up from the airport, and he drove me 2 hours to Manhattan, Kansas. And I remember up to this day that I could look up to my right, to my left, to my back, to my front, that I would just see land and just so flat. And I was like, when's the city's gonna appear? Like you didn't go to the highway. When is the city's gonna appear? I knew that it was 2 hours, but it's like it looked like that it's not nothing's gonna show up. I don't know. I'm maybe be going to the middle of nowhere. And I remember that it's like that time is winter there. So here is summer. So the stage the four summer, winter, spring, and
Fall.
um, fall. They're switched. So here's winter right now, and there's summer. So when I
Wow.
went there, it was summer here and winter there. So my first week, I saw snow for the first time. I have never seen snow. So my first week there, I saw snow. That was my first experience. I think my first step in Kansas, I would say.
Okay. All right. So when it came to all the just the different ways of living here versus Brazil, were there a lot of big obstacles or things that you had to get used to? How and I guess even as you answer that, how did you adjust even with getting used to the language difference and things like that? What were the things that the school had set up for you?
Oh, so in terms of language, the school they have a program uh that is like instated in the school for international students. So when I got there first before the first week of school, I had to go through a test that would test my English, my writing, my listening, my speaking. I didn't do speaking, but mostly my writing and my listening. And from there, I was enrolled in English classes from the school because my English level wasn't enough for me to go to college classes, academic classes. So with that, I spent 1 semester, 2 semesters, 1.5, I would say. I was my spring semester and my summer semester just doing only English classes to be able to go to the academic classes.
Okay.
Um, about the difficulties that you just asked me about, I think here it's so difficult to be an athlete, and there I was just like it was my dream, you know. I was like I had an indoor facility that was like beside campus, like inside of the campus. I had my apartment that was like 3 minutes away, 10 minutes away max by bus or by car from the university. I had food that was close by. Here it's just like in Brazil, I spend an hour to get to go. I spend an hour in public transportation to get where I need to work out, where I need to do my workouts, and
Wow.
1 hour back. So there are any difficulties I didn't have in the first semesters, and looking into that perspective, it was a better place for me.
Right, right. So that's awesome. And so as you get through years at Kansas State, very early on, we were hit with what hit all of us at that time, and that would have been COVID. What was that time frame like for you when COVID hit the States? I understand that there were some obstacles you had to go through. I know, they did some things here in the States where international students had to go back. What was that experience like for you?
So I remember up to this day when COVID hit us. My birthday is March 11th, so we got an email on March 12th that about COVID and about classes being canceled for 2 weeks first. And then so it's like we were coming out of the spring break, honestly, and it was like more 2 weeks of doing nothing. It's okay. So we go back home. We drove back home because we were traveling for my birthday. And on that time, we had, I think, 2 practices, and my coach called all of us, all of the international athletes, Coach Roosevelt at the time, and he advised us that because of the pandemic, it was a worldwide pandemic, that we didn't know what would happen with our family and with our close ones, that we would be great for us to go home because the NCAA already canceled all of the meets and canceled the season. So there wasn't class was not like was everybody wondering what would we do if we would go online, or would we just cancel the semester as well. So with that being said, he advised us to go home. So I think all of my international friends went home. So I went home like March 18th. So that was like 5 days that I had to decide what I would do or not. So I came back home. It was like soon be my first plane. I think just my international plane that was just like outside of the country was full, but all of the other airplanes, they were all empty. So it was like was me and just 4 or 5 people in the entire plane.
Wow.
So after that, so I spent home. So that was March. The plan was for me to stay home until mid-August. When I bought the tickets, I bought tickets to come and go back. So I bought my tickets for July 31st or something like that. So then the time was like passing, like everything shut down over here. So he was hoping that when I came back home, I could even still compete, because I think the virus was hitting United States, but it didn't came
to Brazil at that time.
Brazil at the time that he called me. I think it was just like March 16th, but March 20, the virus was everywhere. So right. He was hoping that we would have some meets still, and we would have a season. But at the end of like the month, when I landed home, there was no season. Everything was like shut down. Everything was canceled. Right. So I stayed home for July. I stayed home March, April, May, June, July. When it got to July, everything was getting canceled as well. So when they closed the borders, there was no date that they would open again. There was no like, oh, okay, in August 21st, because of the classes was gonna come back, we're gonna open the borders and you can come back to school. Right. No, there was no deal. So the borders were closed from Brazil, from some countries. I think first was all of the countries, and then after was just some countries, and Brazil was on their list that you couldn't get into the United States coming from Brazil.
Wow.
So I spent here. So I talked to my coach, and he was like, just stay there, keep practicing, do your online classes, and we will see what we can do for next. Like, you come to the indoor season that started in January. So I was like, okay, I can do nothing. So month by month, I was still trying to get back to the United States, postponing my tickets, all of those stuff, and I couldn't. So at the end of November, me and my coach here back home, we tried to do some things because I really wanted to come back. I was in great shape. I really wanted to come back to the United States and compete. And I didn't want to waste one more semester. Not waste, but be sitting and waiting for the borders to open. One more semester, and we didn't know when it would be open. So in that we have that doubt. So in the end of November, we decided it'll be better for me to go to another country that I
Okay.
was here in South America that they had the borders close to getting to the United States, because Brazil was still having cases, and it wasn't the highest, but it was still having cases, and they would not open the borders soon enough that I needed. So with that, he had my coach here back home. He contacted some coaches that he has in his I don't know, his phone. I don't know how to say.
Okay.
He friends with, and
Uh-huh.
somebody that he trusted, that could have me in their house and for me to
Okay.
stay and do the quarantine. That was the 15-day, and then get to the United States. So that was the deal. If you even come into Brazil, you cannot just stay 2 days in Colombia and get to the United States at that time. You had to do a quarantine outside of the country, in a country that you was allowed to get into the United States. So
Wow.
Colombia was allowed. So I could,
Okay.
yeah, so I went there. I did a training camp, I would say, there for 15 days. I trained a bunch there because they were coaches, and my coach was still sending me practices, and I trained there. I was in a very kind and the most perfect environment that I needed to be at the time. With all of this, traveling by myself to be 16 days in a country that I don't know, in a city that I didn't know, with people that I didn't know, just my coach knew. But he trusted those people, and I trusted them, and it was amazing. I have the experience with my best experience in track and field in the top list. I think the top of the list. And after that, so I spent Christmas there. I went in the 16, I think December 16. I spent Christmas there, and I flew to United States on the 30th of December.
Okay.
So I stayed there. I got to Manhattan on the 31st, and I spent New Year's there in Manhattan. So then I got back and was finally back in the US, I would say.
Now, when you say Manhattan, I always get right away. I'm thinking Manhattan as in, but you were referring to Manhattan, Kansas, correct?
Manhattan, Kansas. Manhattan,
Okay.
Kansas.
All
We
right.
call it
All
the
right.
Little Apple.
Say that again.
We call it Little Apple.
Little. Okay. So during that whole time and everything you had to endure during the COVID time, like, did it affect you mentally to have to go through all those ups and downs, being away from the sport for a little while? How did it affect you? Because so many young athletes, they face different anxieties or different obstacles or adversities, and they don't know how to deal with it. You really, COVID was tough for everybody, but how did it affect you mentally? I know physically you were able to stay in shape, but mentally, how did it affect you with all the things that you were unsure about?
I had I think mostly I had a great support system, I would say, that didn't allow me to go down mentally. Um and it was just like searching for better, for better, for better, for better. And for example, I remember I had videos on my TikTok that TikTok blew up on
Okay.
COVID, right? So I have videos on my TikTok that me doing inside in the house practices, workouts. And when I was allowed to go outside of my house and do the workouts, like as soon as they open up the gyms, I was there doing my workouts, just to like, I think I had a missing season. I had already missed my season that it was canceled because of COVID. So that was a booster for me to keep practicing, because I knew I was in good shape. I just wanted to get in a better shape. and I got, I would say.
That's good.
After that, I had my best season up to now. Like I still have the 2021 as my best season up to now. I didn't have any better season than that.
Wow. Wow. So as you come back, you get to come back to Kansas and you continue your career in Kansas. Were there anything, as far as getting adjusted, coming back to Kansas, was there any adjustments that you make, or was everything pretty much a smooth ride throughout your last few years at Kansas?
No, I would say I think COVID didn't affect me mentally during COVID, but it affected me afterwards.
Okay.
After it's just like a roller coaster ride. It gets to the top, and once it gets to the top, it goes down, right? So that's what happened to me, I think, on my junior year, beginning of my junior year, that I had the best season of my entire life. I had overcame a lot of stuff that I didn't even expected. I got close to go to the Olympics, things that I didn't even expected of myself. But then after that, uh, all this stress that was built to the season and built to, like, for example, me going to another country, spending 15 days was amazing, but that built a stress that I was avoiding because I had a season two. I was like, I had a angry, not angry, hunger. I had a hunger to compete. I had a hunger uh to succeed, I think. And I was
Okay.
avoiding all the stress that I went through because it was stressful. I was 9 months waiting for the borders to open. And I was like in my computer doing classes, uh, checking my emails, calling the consulate, all of the stuff, trying month by month, calling what should we call? Um uh flight agencies to change my flights every month to month. Like I would change to, it was July, I would change to August. August I would change to September. September I would change to October. And it was there month to month. It was a build up of stuff that when my season ended and I had like my 1 month break, that everything broke down.
Okay. Okay.
So I after that I went through a depression phase. Um,
Okay. All right. All right. Well, you were able to, once you were able to kind of get through that, because I know so many people were affected, Victoria, during that time with just the ups and downs. I know here in the States, our kids had to get used to doing school at home. And then for
mhm.
many kids, it was kind of what you talked about. Like so many people adjusted to being, shut down during COVID. But then it was once you had to go back into it that sometimes for some people that was when the stress really hit them. I know for kids they had to learn how to, be social again because they had been stuck in their home for a year, not being in school. And so as you begin to make it do through that period and get back in school, like what was your focus as you begin, to get towards the end of your career at Kansas State? Did you have plans on what you wanted to do? Were you now focused on becoming a professional, will continue to be a professional athlete? Like, what were some of your goals that you had written out for yourself once your career was coming to an end at Kansas State?
I my goal was first I didn't know where I would go. I really wanted to go to grad school, but I had two choices. I would say I want to go to grad school, but if I would go to grad school, I would um let track as my second
Okay.
option because I didn't have an eligibility anymore. So I would go after scholarships and all those stuff. And I had the option of coming back home and trying track series and take track series for a couple of times because as my family, I talk a lot of my family and my family advised me, um, the track years we cannot get back. So I would get older and older. And if I stop doing track for maybe my graduate program, I would not have my 2, 3 years back. But if I
Okay.
do track now, I can do my graduate program or go to a grad school or doctor or master, get my master, um, get my doctor's, whatever afterwards. I can't do that. I still can't do that. So at my end of uh end of career in Kansas State, I had these two options, but I had to get ready for those two options. So I did what anything that was possible for me to be ready for getting a grad school program, and I did anything that it was in my power to get me ready to come back home and take track in the professional level, I'll say.
Okay. All right. So, real quick, I don't want to go too far without touching this because always my goal is hopefully to give the advice to the young athlete who may have endured some similar obstacles that you endured. Do you have advice, or what were some of the tools you were able to use during that downtime, that rough time, even during some of the fight with depression, during the COVID time? What advice would you give to another young athlete if you're talking to them about getting through the same obstacles?
I would say don't lose your roots, because that time, like the pressure time when you're down, it's easy for you to lose yourself in the middle. And if you come back to your roots, come back to your family or anything that you have as your root, you find you identify yourself. I think myself, I can speak that I lost myself so much that I took some time to find myself again. And then when I found myself again, it was late out there. And you um I don't know if I want to get too deep on this, but it's like my season didn't went as I needed and didn't went as I expected, and that's where I found myself lost because I
Mhm.
didn't know what who I was without track and without being meeting my expectations on track. So when I was not meeting my expectations on track, I was beating myself more than I had uh, going through. For example, I was going through depression, but I wasn't meeting my expectations on track. For example, I was not having a
Okay.
good season, so I was beating myself up because of that too. And if I had myself in place, I would know that that time was a difficult time, and everybody has a difficult time, and difficult times they pass. So I
Right.
would just be more patient and be um, touched down with my roots and myself,
That's
my
good.
family.
That's good. And I appreciate you. I always like to say this to our guests that I have, Victoria. I appreciate you for being on the show because I believe that our life is not our own. Like we go through things so that we can help other people get through it. So we go through tough obstacles, and you're blessed to be here today, and you able to overcome that moment. And so now you get to talk to the young athlete that may be going through something in their home, in their community. You get to now tell your story, and it's a part of helping them make it over their obstacles. So I thank you for sharing that story and how you had to endure it, and what you had to do to overcome what you went through during a very tough moment for everybody at that time. Now, I don't think any of us expected that, and so
Yeah,
I appreciate you sharing that story.
thank you
On the
for
lighter
having me.
side, I want to ask, what is it that Victoria does outside of sports?
Right now, I am trying to find myself. Oh, I'm joking. Uh, no, right now, outside of sports, I am enjoying time with my family, and I reserved this 1 year. I graduated last May, and I reserved this 1 year to know what I want to do next.
Okay.
I was still doing track, but I wanted to like just have a gap year or a year for me to relax and know what I want to do um next. So I'm still in that on that process of
Okay.
finding what I want to do. Now I've come to some of the conclusions. What I'm gonna do outside, I don't know, but I know that I want to do one more cycle,
Okay.
Olympic cycle to try to go to the next Olympics.
Okay.
And as these Paris Olympics wasn't successful, So I decided for my family that I could try one more EC and NC. Hopefully I succeed. And outside of there, I'm still clueless, but I'm looking for things to do.
Right. All right. All right. What did you actually major in school?
Psychology.
Psychology. Okay. All right. I think I always tell athletes when they say it, it's not a bad thing. And I think so often young people, the biggest tough part, and even as an adult, we all know the toughest thing is when you think you're the only one going through something.
Yeah.
So when you get to share with the young athlete, hey, I finished college and I'm taking a year off to figure out what I want to do, that's not uncommon. There's so many athletes that go through that. And so even if somebody hearing you say, hey, I'm trying to figure it out right now, there's a young athlete that will hear that and won't say, okay. So there's nothing like we feel like there's something wrong with us when there's not other people going through the same thing. And it's a part of life. You're very young, and so you're trying to figure out what's next. And so I appreciate, again, always appreciate when people are transparent and share that information. And as we get close to wrapping it up, I just want to ask a couple more questions, really two or three. Have you had opportunities to maybe mentor or coach some other young athletes?
No, I have not have
Okay,
any opportunities.
is that something in your country that you have the opportunity to do sometimes?
No, here, the same. We still facing problems from the pandemic. So
Okay.
I think we had shortage, I would say, of kids uh, interested in going to interested in doing sports
Okay.
after the COVID. So we had a big group of kids before the COVID, but the COVID hits, they didn't came back. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay. All right.
So
So we're gonna
right now I
get
don't have right now I don't have like in my group, my training group, we don't have young athletes. We just have like pro athletes.
okay. All right. So I want to ask real quick. You're back home. You ever think about coming back to the States like for good, or are you happy where you're at home in Brazil?
I always think of coming back to States. I think United States give opportunities a bunch as more than here. I knew that my opportunities were closed when I finished my chapter at Kansas State, and I tried to open more, but I didn't look into it because I wanted to spend some time with my family. But
Okay.
one thing that I want in a day is come back, finish my education, and see what I can do.
Okay. So would your plans be to go back to the Kansas State area?
No,
What is the place
my
that you would
plan
like to go to?
my plan is explore more. I would say,
Okay.
I think somewhere on I would say California or Florida, those coasts, because
Okay.
the climate
The
is
weather.
similar. The weather is
Okay.
similar to here, but I'm open to any. I would say any opportunity that I would have.
That's awesome. That's all. So last quick questions. I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate you joining us. But to the young person that's listening, why is it important to have positive people in your circle?
Why is it important to have positive people in your circle? Um, I think it's primordial to have positive people. I think it is kind of like a scale, I would say, that has the positive and the negative. If you have a lot of negative people, the the scale will go down, and this is gonna weigh more. And if you have more
Right.
positive people in your in your life, in your circle, this will weigh more. And this is what you can use the same scale as your thoughts. If you have a lot of people, negative people around you, shouting to you negative thoughts, that's what you will weigh in your head. You'll be thinking negative. And if you have positive people around you shouting to you positive thoughts, that's what is going to weigh more in your head.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And my last question, who or what is it that inspires you most in life?
Who and what it is. Woo! I think I don't think you guys know, but first person that comes to my mind is she was my mentor, I would say. She was like my godmother to track and field. Um, her name is Kayla Costa. She's a triple jumper. She's like really famous here in Brazil. She has international um um medals, I would say, as well.
Okay.
But she was my first inspiration since I started, and she still is up to this day because of the things that she went through in life and the things that she accomplished was amazing for me. And I every day I think not every day is a not a good thought, but every now and then that I think I just wish I was just a little uh successful as she was.
It's awesome just to hear your story, what you've been able to overcome. I appreciate you, your transparent, just the obstacles that you have to overcome. I think, young athletes get to see it. Hopefully even back home, some of the young people, maybe even back or family or friends will get to see some of the show and just it will inspire them. Just to hear your story, what you had to go through a very tough time for most of us. So, Victoria, again, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed.
That's good. And so, everyone watching, I always say it is good to be great in the sport that you're playing, but it's even better to be great in life. So, I ask that you'll take this information, share it with people you know. Just hearing again another awesome guest that we've had and an awesome story, or even some of the things she's had to endure to still be what she is as a professional athlete in Brazil. We just ask that you'll share this information, be intentional in applying it. But we ask that you'll continue to join us, continue to enjoy these shows as we continue to go out and up. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next episode.